Reactions flying in thick and fast. Mr. Anupam Kher, who has of course taken up the cause of Kashmiri Pundits both on the silver screen and outside, he's now reacted to the 370 verdict by the Supreme Court today. Let's just play that soundbite out.
दोस्तों मेरी फ़्लाइट टेक ऑफ करने वाली है दुबई से दिल्ली और अभी मुझे नोटिफिकेशन मिली है कि आर्टिकल 370 को लेकर जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जद्दोजहद चल रही थी वो उसका फैसला सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उस पक्ष में दिखाया जिसमें दिखाना चाहिए था। आर्टिकल 70 का एब्रोगेशन ज़रूरी था और कश्मीर भारत का एक अभिन्न अंग है। अब इस पर सब बहस खत्म हो जानी चाहिए। जय हो, जय हिंद, जिंदाबाद।
भारत का अभिन्न अंग बन गया। Rahul, I mean, for years, the stated position of government of India has been that J&K is an integral part of India. Until you had an article of the Constitution which treated J&K as separate or different from other states, that never really meant, I mean, it was words, but it never really had the legal stamp. Today, that legal stamp is there when the court said that 370 was never meant to be a permanent provision.
Yeah, so, a whole cottage industry has come up in Pakistan, in Kashmir, in the valley among certain politicians advocating that the center is draconian because it continuously proscribes the rights and freedoms of ordinary Kashmiris in the valley and of course people who live in Jammu. Now the fact is that all those people today have been completely nullified by not just, and let me just be very, very clear about this, is no ordinary Supreme Court judgment. This is a judgment read out by 3 different justices. Remember, all concurrent, agreeing very unanimously on the 5 basic questions that were placed before them. So, Zaka, if you really go into the reasoning, it becomes clear that this also has implications for other states. You mentioned 371 through 1 to E. A to E. Now, a large number of those states will also be looking, and then just no northeastern states, because 371 applies also to Maharashtra, Gujarat. So, fundamentally speaking, the basic idea that is emerging from the Supreme Court is that India remains predominantly a unitary state. At the end of the day, yes, there is federalism and there are federal powers that need to be exercised, but the power of India's parliament, its unitary system, is unquestionable, especially when it comes to looking at legislation and of course the contours and the boundaries of our union. So I think that really has
I
been
think we need to draw that distinction that yes, as far as integrity and sovereignty are concerned, we're absolutely unitary. But yes, there are issues that are under the state list. Law and order is under the state list, health, education, etc. are under the state list. Those states can continue to legislate upon. There is no bar there. But I think one absolute fundamental thing that's been underlined in today's court order is that individual states do not have residual sovereignty, or they lose their sovereignty the moment they become a part of the Union of India. Sovereignty rests with the Union of India, and I think that has been absolutely clearly underlined in today's verdict. But Sushil Pandit, the other part, and I think towards the end of his judgment, the CJI said that. He said that we would urge the centre to restore statehood as soon as possible. He hasn't specified a date, and that elections have to be held. He's directed the Election Commission of India to hold elections before 30th of September 2024. Would both of these be welcome as well from your point of view?
I think it is a call to be taken in terms of conducive circumstances. Elections have to be held when all electoral rolls are updated, when proper conducive atmosphere prevails. Delimitation was another factor, and now call has to be taken by the Government of India. I personally believe till such time ground situation is conducive, which means it is not anymore a Disturbed Area Act and AFSPA has been removed, army forces have been reduced to the normal levels. Till then, we should take caution.
Okay.
We should not rush.
Just give me a moment, because we're getting a reaction from the BJP President JP Nadda. This is his first reaction. He was speaking to reporters in Parliament. He's in fact put out on Twitter, and I quote, that the Constitutional Bench of the Supreme Court has upheld the decision taken by the government, in fact the decision taken by Parliament, to remove Article 370 and 35A is It's due process and it's objective. Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's government has done the historic work of including Jammu and Kashmir in the main ideology of India, and for this, I and crores of our workers express our heartfelt gratitude to the Prime Minister. For the longest time, and Rahul knows this, when the BJP had this on its manifesto saying we will abrogate Article 370, mainstream politicians in India said this is a fig leaf. This is never going to happen. This is a pipe dream. But today, it has happened. And it's been validated, the legal validation of the highest court of the land, as somebody said in Jammu there, mohar lagadi. I think it's an important one. The stamp of approval, the legal stamp of approval has been put on that decision today.
Absolutely, Zaka. Just imagine how the BJP is now going to amplify this politically. They are going to position themselves as the only party that defines and defends the integrity and the sovereignty of this country, the territorial integrity and the sovereignty of this country. They will come out and say, look, we told you, only us, bringing us into power meant that the concept of India's akhandata will at some level or the other be secured and reinstated and re-emphasized. They will go out there and they will call out the appeasement politics of other political parties, and I don't need to name them, we all know them, and say that because of this, we had a situation where an element of separateness was somehow allowed to flow in a very sensitive zone of this country.
Yeah.
And finally, I just want to make a point. Forget about the political, think about the psychological and the physical integration, that aspect, the psychological integration. Today, any Indian can decide to live in Kashmir, not worrying about whether he will be considered a secondary citizen in that particular state. So domicile rights will extend to any Indian who wants to go there, and think about the fruits of that. And yes, there will be people who will say that, oh, this will mean that the Muslims there will be under a little bit of pressure, demographically, etc. All that is true, but the fact of the matter is that Kashmir becomes verifiably a political contiguity to the rest of India, and that means a lot.
You cannot have an article in the Constitution of India which says if you're an Indian citizen, you can live and work in any state in this country except one. I mean, that ends today. I've got more political reactions. I'll come back to our guests in the studio, but let's get more political reactions, because I think this is going to fundamentally alter the politics of the valley. Mr. Abdullah has said that he's disappointed but not disheartened. At some point, whenever elections happen, and they have to happen before the 30th of next year, it's the 30th of September next year, this will be an issue that the parties like NC and PDP will put before the people of Kashmir. And let's see what the people's verdict will be on this. But let's play out these political reactions, and I'll come back to the guests in the studio in a second.
Just the Supreme Court has said that the abrogation of Article 370, the centre was very much in its powers to do it. It was a temporary provision.
Well, it was in fact a temporary provision, and it was the thought process of the Prime Minister, the government and the country which decided that we have to get rid of it. And doing so in the year 2019, the August of 2019, when the Article 370 was abrogated, it was a landmark decision. It was challenged in the courts, and today the Supreme Court, the highest body under the Constitution of this country, has prevailed and decided that abrogation of Article 370 was correct, and the issue is settled for all.
Also, the Supreme Court asking that election should be held in J&K by September the 30th, resurrected Election Commission, also implored the government to restore the statehood as early as possible.
Well, that is a different issue altogether. For us today, it is the most important is that Supreme Court has put its final stamp on abrogation of Article 370, which is indeed a landmark decision.
Last 4 years, we've seen a lot of development in J&K. We've seen Mr. Amit Shah say a lot on it that the peace has returned to J&K.
Well, the fact is, peace has returned, development has taken place, and Kashmir is now India, and that is what Indians wanted, that's a part of us. And I think you can see development across.
The government must seriously take the judgment and restore the full statehood which they took away, because this was unprecedented. Full state was demoted to a union territory. I think it should be restored back as a full state, and elections must be held. They should hold elections as quickly as possible because people have the right to have their elected representatives.
Critical reactions there coming on the Supreme Court decision today. Yeah, Sushil Pandit, you had a point to make.
You know, as it was very interesting what Rahul said. Even Jawaharlal Nehru is on record having said that this article will wear off over time.
Yeah.
And in 60s, Prakashveer Shastri, a private member bill, was introduced in the parliament and the treasury benches assured him to withdraw because they were going to bring in a bill which would abrogate 370. It never happened. However, in 2019, for the first time, Congress committed itself by writing it in their manifesto that they will restore 370 in the Constitution of India. I would like to know, where do they stand now? At that time, I could understand they were hustled into it by their fellow parties in Jammu and Kashmir, where it is now difficult to distinguish between National Conference, PDP and Congress on ground. They, under the pressure of their unit, state unit, put it in the manifesto that they are going to restore Article 370 in the Constitution of India. Will somebody please ask them, where do they stand on that now?
Okay.